Ready Check Radio. What's up, Internet? It's Thursday, it's 7 p.m. Eastern, back on normal schedule. That means it's time for the Relic Grind, Ready Check Radio's Final Fantasy XIV, a Square Enix podcast. I'm your host, as I am every time we do this show, Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. It's wonderful to be here, back on Thursdays, back with you, chatting about Final Fantasy XIV and all things Square Enix. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Music, Audible, wherever, while you're there, give us a little like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is on that service. And if you like what we do here, tell all your friends. But most importantly, sometime head on over to ReadyCheckRadio.com. RAIDEO. Got all the socials there in the upper right-hand corner, so you can follow them all, support us. And we've got all the backlog episodes of not only Relic Grind, but also Gaming Gumbo, our weekly gaming wrap-up show on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, here live on Twitch. We've got chat ready to go. And yeah, I mean, there was like some stuff this week. Like, you know, yeah, I mean, you kind of, when you do a show like this, when you do a show like this, you know, back in when I was like calling people like, hey, I'm going to do a little like, you know, in the vein of Game Breaker-esque thing. And who knows if it goes anywhere, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. I don't care. I'm going to do it for me. But hey, I want to do the shows around companies. And yes, while like Final Fantasy XIV may be a lot of the conversation on that show, if there is no Final Fantasy XIV news, we want to be able to cover other things, or heaven forbid, Final Fantasy XIV went away. Like, we still want to have a show to do. So, yeah, you know, I was a little worried this week that there wasn't going to be anything. Like, because we had Final Fantasy VI-1 a while ago, so yeah, sure, we could spend 5-10 minutes talking about Ultimate Progress. But, you know, other than that, nothing. And then I'm like, well, Square Enix just sold off like 40% of its business. So, I mean, we could talk about 16 being almost done, which we already kind of did, but now we know the trailer is done, and sure, we can mention that. And there's a little bit of Final Fantasy XI stuff, but, you know, I really wish something would happen that, Tark, we could talk about. How are you, Chris Montoya?
I don't know.
This is fine.
This is fine. Greetings, programs. It's been a week, and most of it just in the last couple days. It's just been, if you haven't been following along, man, it's the top end raiders and things with content creation, man, they're just like going all haywire right now. Good
yeah,
times.
maybe we'll talk
safe.
about it. Adam Lane, aka Kronos, what's up?
Yep. Nothing really, you know.
Nothing.
I frequent
the
bird app, so
yeah,
I'm aware.
Yeah, and so this is one of those things. We were talking pre-show. Join us pre-show sometimes too. We fire it up usually about 15-20 minutes ahead of time and have like 5-10 minutes of pre-show. And what we're going to talk about predominantly today, like, I've seen some videos out there that are just absolutely outlandish. Like, just absolutely outlandish from content creators that are, oh, the Final Fantasy community, this is a sad day for the community. Oh, come on. Get a grip. Get a grip. It's an MMORPG. It's a video game. That does not mean that you don't have the ability to be upset about features and stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into that portion. You absolutely do have the... Hell, we make a living talking about that type of stuff. So, yeah, sure. But this is a dark day for the... Oh, suck my butt cheek. 85 to 90% of the game's overall community doesn't even know what we're talking about.
That's why we're here, to let them know.
Right. The 5 to 10% that are so involved, they do a podcast about it and consume everything on the Lodestone and search YouTube for... Yeah. Some of them have been acting a fool. And some of them haven't. And, you know, I just wish we had something to talk about this week. I just wish we had something to talk about. We got, 50-plus minutes more to kill, guys.
Oh, just get into it.
Hey, how's your
using
six? How's your ultimate prog, Tark? Let's start there. Just your general ultimate prog. How's it going? Get an update.
Again, the issues that revolve around the group as a whole continue to plague us, but we are making subtle progress. We've got Sanctity 1 down clean a couple times. I got my head wrapped around that with my positioning, and you really need at some parts. You really need to see a lot of the arena, so you need to kind of position yourself so you can see that. Unless you're using a mod to scale back even further.
Just get you one of those fancy widescreen monitors that they can't ban you for.
Yeah.
And then, but then we're having problems with some people want to do communication one way, some people want to do things the other way, and we're having to rehash strats and clean things up. So the outside stuff's really hindering us from being consistent, but we're making subtle progress here and there.
What about you, Kronos? How's it going?
Yeah, I love my team. Like, I've been raiding with my team for quite a while. And we don't raid a ton. I think we only go like maybe 7.5 hours a week. Which
because you do what, like 2 nights, 3 hours, something like that?
We do 2 nights, 3 hours, and then 1 night, half a lockout.
Gotcha.
So and we also take breaks. But I mean, I love all the players that I play with, and we get a lot done in the time that we do. So we're on the we've seen the second set of Nidhogg towers.
Nice.
So I think there's a chance that we get to some time loopy stuff maybe next week.
Nice. Does it continue to be, in both of your estimations, the hardest ultimate to date as Yoshi P build it ahead of the release?
I think it's accurate this time.
Yeah, I'm right on board, and I'm not even that far in. I'm like, things come quick, and they're a lot to take in. Sometimes the screen is just full of these spell effects, and you're like, oh my god, what is happening? But yeah, it's a blast. I'm loving it.
So I pug ultimates simply because my schedule does not permit me to do a static anymore at this point. So
gotcha.
This one's exceedingly rough as far as pugs. So yeah, my progress is just null and void compared to both of your progresses. Hopefully, with the ending of my stage show, I can get some static time with my friends and get some more progress on there. But it's been beefy in and out of there. So let's just get down to it, ladies and gentlemen. Add-ons, third-party tools, plugins, whatever the hell you want to call them. Let's talk about it. It's been a week. So Yoshi P did take to the Lodestone to post a blog post about third-party tools. Now, one of the things that Yoshi P has asked for right at the beginning of this post is saying, please note, this is going to be a lengthy post. It really isn't. Containing difficult technical terminology. It really doesn't. And may not be of interest to the average player. He's dead on there. He's dead on there. Moreover, this announcement is meant to be read in its entirety, so I ask that you please refrain from sharing excerpts of this text out of context. All right. So the way we're going to go through this is there's like 4 or 5 different sections, and we'll break each one of them down, and I'll read you that section in full, and then we'll talk about that, gents. How's that work? I want to respect Yoshi P's, advice that read this in full.
Sounds fair.
So first, the use of third-party tools. As stated in the terms of service for Final Fantasy XIV, the use of third-party tools is strictly prohibited. Players who are determined to be using third-party tools will have their accounts suspended or permanently banned for repeat offenses. And that is the end of that section. So let's talk about that a little bit. Because I do think for the sake of our discussion, we should, although Square won't, we should probably define third-party tools a little bit. Because I hate watching YouTube videos from other content creators, some of whom I love dearly, talk about, well, technically Discord is a third party. Get the fuck out of here. That's intellectually dishonest, okay?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Talking on Discord versus not talking to your team, it probably does give you an edge in the grand scheme of things. I get it. That's not what they're talking about. That is not what we're going to be talking about here. We are going to be talking about third-party tools that actually interface with the game in some way, whether that is to graphically improve your performance through something like G-Shader, whether that's ACT or some other parsing device, whether that's chat bubbles, whether it's cosmetic or not, if it interfaces with the game. I believe the spirit of what they're talking about here is things that interface with the game. A third-party tool, if I used a calculator and an Excel sheet to parse myself manually, then yeah, technically I'm using a third-party tool. In the spirit of the discussion, stop that, people. Stop that! That is not what they mean, and you know it. And you know it. But Square does attempt to define that a little bit in the next section. Defining third-party tools. We've received requests from players asking that we define what tools are and aren't permissible, but to do so would require an assessment of all third-party tools available on the internet, as well as all gaming devices and their functionality. Unfortunately, such an undertaking is physically impossible, which is why we decided to simply prohibit the use of all third-party tools and software. By the same token, it is impossible for us to check what programs are installed on every player's PC. This is why we cannot identify and reprimand offenders 100% of the time. To offer more clarity on our process, here are a few examples of the rule violations we prioritize for investigation. Use of tools that allow players to more easily complete content. Modification of the UI to display additional information. There's an asterisk on that one that we'll get to in a little bit. Use of packet spoofing tools and any actions or public statements that promote the use of third-party tools. All reports of such activity warrant investigation, and accounts determined to be in violation of the game's terms of service will be suspended or banned unless there's a significant change to the terms of service, which we would publicly announce. This rule remains as is. And I think that's an important thing here, Kronos. A lot of people reading that this is a change from prior stances or prior EULAs. This has always been the stance.
I'm pretty sure this has been the case since like 2013.
Yeah.
It's nothing new. I think the thing that slightly might have changed is the whip seemed to be cracked like almost immediately when it wasn't being cracked before. I think that's the big thing that threw everybody's feathers in a ruffle or whatever the hell you want to say.
Right.
And it's just kind of weird because obviously it did blind sense of people, but to be fair, anybody streaming it knew the risk. And the risk was that you were breaking TOS and that it's possible you could get banned. They just hadn't really done anything about it. My issues always with this has been consistency, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And it just never, even now, with the bans coming through, it doesn't feel consistent. It feels a little bit more targeted. It feels like whoever seems to be like getting, I don't even know like the best way to put it. Not really attacked, but you know what I mean. Like it seems like some people are going to get away with it, some people aren't, and that's just how it's going to be. That's how it's always been, to be fair. And this really only affects streamers, which fair or not, that's I guess for people to decide, because this isn't going to cause people to stop using tools. It's not. It's either going to cause streamers to hide them, which people already do. I guarantee you, your favorite streamer that raids probably has ACT on their second monitor. That just is what it is. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to just see that more. I think anybody that used ACT and streamed the overlay before, that's probably going to be mostly gone. That's going to probably be the biggest change you see. But they're still going to be running it in the background more times than not. And then I think it really hits the people that make the changes to the UI, which these TOS deem as like a one-to-one thing with like everything else, which I also don't agree with, but that's how they define it. So that's how it is. And I mean, we could get more into that later, but I think my biggest issue is this is such a blanket statement that just treats like all mods are bad mods. And
well, see, I don't read it that way. I read it as we can't control or have the resources to determine what is a good or a bad one. So all must be treated in the same way.
Isn't that kind of bullshit though? Like,
Well, here's the thing. The one thing that I do struggle with that you may be right pointing out as bullshit is, and we haven't gotten to it yet in this letter, but there are situations that I think are going to be really weird if somebody ends up getting banned for something that then 3 months or a patch later gets incorporated into the UI.
Yeah,
that I feel like is just kind of dumb. From it feels dumb. From a enforcement standpoint, I understand what they're doing. I don't think the enforcement is BS. But I do have to say this, Tark, and see if you agree with me. Square did this to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They 100% did this to themselves with, and even Yoshi P, as much as I love him, and he deserves a lot of credit. To me, he is not, nobody is immune from criticism, including myself, and Yoshi P is no exception. We have seen Yoshi P time and time again on live letters with almost that wink, wink, nudge, nudge, nod, nod, smile mentality of, I don't know what's on your computer. They're forbidden. If you get caught and, we find out you were using them, we're going to ban you or we're going to give you a suspension. But I don't know what's on your computer, guys. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And now all of a sudden, it's being weaponized by people. Yeah. And Square is now in this spot where, well, we got to do what we always said we got to do, even though people aren't really reporting this because it's a violation or because they're doing it because they want to get back at X streamer or they didn't like, what Tark did on his stream or just they saw act on his screen. And so mass report, it's being weaponized, and Square's in this goofy spot now where they've played coy with add-ons and plugins, as long as they weren't hacks, which we're going to get to in a second. That's a totally different ballgame. As long as they weren't something that caused you to be cheating in some way, and interfacing with the software in some malicious way or hacking, changing way, then it was all just kind of treated as, hey, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
And now they're in a position where everybody's telling, and they have to do this, and it seems overly harsh with the way they've treated it in the past because they weren't getting nearly the levels of reports. It is, I mean, I can't argue that no streamer wasn't fully aware of what they were about to get into. Wasn't fully aware that by showing an overlay on their screen, they were running the risk of getting banned.
Yeah.
But once you pump out a statement like this, there's a portion of every streamer, whether you are like us and you have a couple hundred followers or you have a couple million followers, there's a portion of your audience that is only watching you because they don't like you. And they're just looking for a reason to hate you. And hey, here's this post. I'm going to report them. Square, they did this to themselves, and now they're in a really awkward position, I think, Tark.
Yeah, they've had a long history of passive-aggressive, as you said, like don't show, don't tell, don't get caught. I kind of equate it to like you get pulled over by a police officer just for not wearing your seatbelt, and he's like, hey, just put on your seatbelt, everything will be okay. All right, sir, but just so you know, I have a couple unregistered guns. Well, now he has to take action against you, and that's kind of what's going on right here.
Well, I don't think it's nearly that serious.
Okay. Maybe a little extreme, but as long as you don't stream it,
We've had streamers in the community this week accused of bad analogies, and that might be a bad one too. That might be a bad one too. On the other side of this, we do have the next segment, which is hacks, mods, risk of infection from malicious software. I'm going to read it to you just to honor Yoshi P's wishes, but I think we could be really short on this one. Hacks are alterations of a program that can allow for otherwise impossible things to happen. For Final Fantasy XIV, which relies on server-client communication, hacking is much more difficult than in other games. Moreover, our security measures are being improved upon constantly, and we'll continue to bolster them in the future. Supplementary tools known as mods, however, can do a number of things, such as display additional information sent by the FF14 servers on the screen, or send false packet information to change the location of characters. PvP cheating is a big one right now. In the case of, he did not say that, I added that. In the case of the latter, we have systems in place to automatically check and inspect system logs, allowing us to immediately take action against cheaters when discovered. In short, the use of such tools will not allow players to automatically clear high-end content, yet carries a high risk of being penalized. So we ask that you refrain from using them, i.e. low reward, high risk. We receive many inquiries regarding infection by viruses and spyware that steal passwords after downloading third-party tools and plugins. To keep your system secure, we ask that you exercise judgment and refrain from needlessly downloading third-party tools or software of unknown origins. And I think we can keep this one short, guys. All three of us probably agree, I would imagine agree, that if you are using any type of tool, add-on, hack, mod, plugin, whatever you want to call it, that is actually cheating in the game, you're done. Like, we're not even remotely trying to defend those types of tools in this conversation.
No, and I think that's where I kind of go back to the last point a little bit. To me, there's a clear line of what's over the line and what's not. At least personally.
We're gonna paint the line in a second to see if it is that clear. But yeah,
you mentioned something too that I just want to touch on for like a second, where you added in that PvP line, right? And the thing that I still find myself kind of laughing a little bit about is that this came out right after, like, basically a few people had killed the new raid, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of activity, I'd say, like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, about PvP cheaters.
Oh yeah.
And there was no statement made about that. So I mean, that kind of rubs me the wrong way, but it is what it is. I think they've actually taken care of a few of them, from what I've heard behind the scenes. They just haven't really made it public. Because I think some people were removed from leaderboards and stuff like that. But to me, those problems, when you're affecting another player, which to me is like unacceptable. Whereas like a lot of these other things, you're really not affecting other players at all. Like like if I change the size of a number on my hotbar, like I'm not affecting some person I'm playing with. But if I'm speed hacking,
right, and we're gonna get to that because I don't think the line is as clear as you seem to think it does. So I can't wait to get to that part of the discussion. And Cal is saying, agree to disagree. Tools are tools. Yeah, there are people that are that black and white about it. Anything that isn't
black and white about it.
Anything that isn't in, well, you play on console too, so that might be a difference when we get to this painting of the line portion as well, which I'm glad you do in this case, because it does give that different viewpoint here.
I'll have some questions for you later, but we'll talk.
Yeah. There are some people that are that far. I don't care if it's a G shader to make things look prettier. I don't care if it's a chat bubble. I don't care if it's a DPS meter. I don't care if it's a teleportation hacking tool for PvP. They all are banned, and get them out of here. Get them out of here. For some people, the line is that clear. For some people, and I think Kronos is probably going to fall more on this one when we get there, the line is if you're attacking the software to cheat, that's out. If you're modifying things like UI elements for ease of visibility because the in-game doesn't make them big enough for your particular vision, or DPS meters in Kronos' case, the data is there. It's not doing anything besides reading it. Those, maybe the line is there for you. We're going to get to that line. And then you have people like Tark who, even if they wanted to, can't use any of these because they're simply playing on a console, which is another line of demarcation that is relatively unique when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV. You don't have these types of problems with World of Warcraft or any of those PC-only MMOs. But let's just throw the flat-out cheating stuff out. Like, I don't even think it warrants discussion. If you're cheating, get out of here. I am interested in your opinions on the other stuff. Like the next segment. Enhancements to the HUD or other UI elements. We believe that people use the aforementioned tools to expand the HUD and display more information because they feel that existing functions are insufficient for tackling high-end duties. In recognition of this, we intend to review the most prominent tools. And in order to discourage their use, endeavor to enhance the functionality of the HUD. Though it will take some time, we're determined to make it happen. not least for the benefit of those who play on consoles. So consoles specifically getting a little nod here. And this is where I think a lot of people, maybe not the ones like, that are, hey, if it's an add-on, get it out. But a lot of people, I think, are going to fall in this one where it's like, why is the debuff or buff counter not displayed in the keyframe next to my party member's name? Why do I have to target them to see that they have 10 seconds left or 8 seconds left? Or why can I not see a death log, Tark, and wow, okay, that ability really blasted me. That's the name of the ability that I need to get my mitigation ready for next time, because that one's hitting me for like those types of things that some add-ons can do, some plugins can do, and many, many more. I'm just giving some basic examples of ones that I think are kind of no-brainer, should be in there, and probably now with this discussion will be at some point. Some of those tools that, do you see a problem using them or do you not?
I don't like any of them. And again, my point of view comes from being a console player, and being a console player from day one. I feel that if you're going to have cross-play and you're going to have them both on the same servers playing together, there needs to be a level playing field. And whether that's through add-ons and more information or just general experience, I feel that these add-ons just need to go.
Okay, so devil's advocate. Devil's advocate then.
Awesome.
Devil's advocate then. Yeah, and they specifically say that, for console players, we definitely want to look at some of these HUD improvements. Let me devil's advocate you then. Not necessarily my point of view, but other side of this. You said a level playing field. Who cares?
I do.
It's a 99% PvE-centered game. You're not in the 3 free companies in the entire world, 3 to 5 free companies in the entire world that are competing for world first. You don't intend to be that. Your guild isn't trying to be that. You have no desire to be that. What level playing field is needed for you?
All of it.
Why is a level playing field needed for you?
I don't know. It's just something in my gut, I guess. This is my platform of choice, and them having access to tools that I have absolutely nothing, I have no option to. If I had option to it on the console, I might try some of them out. Again, not stream it all, but the fact that it's totally cut off, maybe that's part of the reason. But it shouldn't be a substandard experience depending on if you play on PC or PlayStation.
Yeah, and Takal saying, why do you need that? Learn the fight without it. There are unfortunately, the reality, at least for me in Final Fantasy XIV, there are times, Kronos, when I don't know what killed me. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with learn the fight and be better at it. Yeah. Maybe, okay, I can start, I didn't know that ability was coming. I've now seen it once. Mm-hmm. I'm going to learn from that. But there are combinations of things, particularly in some of like the harder raid content, the ultimates and things like that, where you mitigated one thing but ended up getting swamped by another. And I'm not talking about having it spoon feed you deadly boss mod style or anything like that, which is a conversation we'll get into. I'm talking about regular MMOs now have a death tracker.
Yeah.
Where you can flip and see what happened. The combat log in Final Fantasy is butts. It's butts.
It's bad.
Awful.
Bad. The battle log in general is bad.
It's very hard for me to use my experience and go, all right, let me go in, look at my combat log. Okay, so, all right, I did that wrong. Okay, this time we're going to try this. We're going to try this. Again, I'm not talking about mods that actually like feed you what abilities coming up next, deadly boss mod type stuff, like or bigwigs type stuff in World of Warcraft. We'll talk about that in a second. But there are just aspects of this game that, you find yourself guessing at moments sometimes.
And one thing just to touch on that I've become more aware about because of this whole conversation is like people with accessibility issues that need these, they feel like they need these things to play the game. And I wasn't really aware of that subset, to be honest, before all this stuff blew up. But maybe there is someone who's like legit vision impaired that needs a bigger number to see, and they can't, and they play on PC. So that's like an option they have. I think the PS5 argument, to be honest, it'll never be fair. Personally, it'll never be fair because
right away you have the performance issues, the performance difference, right off the top.
Yeah, but even if you throw that out, I think it's an impossible task for them because we know they can't police this, right? So even if we say all this stuff is banned, right? And let's say that Tarkov finds a world first raid group that he goes into. There are still going to be people on the other world first teams that can run things that you can't. They're just not going to show it. So it's still not fair, right? Like it's more of like an illusion, honestly. Which is kind of my point that this whole terms of service thing with who we're banning and how we're policing it, we're kind of asking players to be ignorant, right? Like, we're kind of just asking, like, hey, if you stream, don't use it. If you don't stream, we have no way of catching you, right?
Right.
And here's what's going to happen, right? Like, you're going to have these world first races. They're still going to continue to play on PC because they still see that as the superior hardware. And if you have a high-end PC, I don't really think there's much argument to be made. Their PS5s do kill, like, some smaller end stuff, but a lot of these players have ultra-wide monitors. They can play at resolutions that you can't play at. And like it's just a fact. And they definitely can't police monitors. It's impossible. So like what's gonna happen is now when they submit their videos, they're gonna have the one person who just plays on the base game because there are people that don't use anything. And then everybody else, or you don't know how many other people of the 8 are using it, and then they're just gonna submit that one video and Yoshi P's gonna give them the thumbs up and congrats. You know what I'm saying? Like because we have to just pretend that we don't know the other 7 players are using it. And they might not be. But we don't know. And so, to me, that's the biggest problem I personally have is if we're going to preach fairness, which they say in this TOS, it's never going to be truly fair.
Right. And you've brought up the accessibility portion too, right? And the fact of the matter is you just have no idea how somebody is using a mod. You brought up visually impaired. Yeah. I've seen mods that cause sound effects for certain things for people that have a hard time hearing.
Sure.
And they have certain sound effects tied to abilities and things like that. Now, somebody that is mildly hearing impaired that uses those types of plugins or add-ins, those could then be used instead by somebody who is not hearing impaired to get audio cues for abilities being popped off that aren't inherently in the game. So, like, you have no idea how somebody is using something. And these are all things that Square is going to have to look at. If we're going to go look at which add-ons are being downloaded millions of times. Why are they being downloaded millions of times? Yeah. One of the add-ons that is downloaded the most that I have seen doing research for this show and going through all this stuff is putting the gill inside your inventory window
I've seen that.
Instead of as a UI HUD element. Why has Square not just fixed that then? You know what? Clearly our players want that in the inventory bag. They don't want it as a HUD element. Or give you the option, something like that. Anyway, we're going to talk about, like, how does this get resolved at the end here. Speaking of those raids, high-end duties and world races, this is the biggie, right? This is what Cal was saying about raiders are the most mad. Well, it goes without saying that we're aware of world races for high-end duties. As the developers, we're proud to have grown into one of the few games where they're held, and it delights us to see so many players participate as well as spectate with great interest. I'm sure it's good advertisement. But a race should be fair. And it's our earnest wish that participants don't use third-party tools. Indeed, we've only released duties that we have proven can be beaten with the game's standard features. Without a doubt, patch 6.11's Dragon Song's Reprise is the hardest duty we've ever created. Some may compare it to the unending coil of Bahamut, but taking into account our players' improved skill, the increased number of actions, and the more complex mechanics, This latest Ultimate entry has the edge. To be able to conquer it in such a short time requires great individual prowess, teamwork, and support, and you can consider this gamer thoroughly impressed. Because such races are unofficial, we usually limit our involvement to some comments after a number of teams have cleared the duty, by offering our congratulations via the official Twitter account and confirming timestamps. We want to recognize your achievements and contribute to community excitement. However, if our recognition encourages excessive competition and controversy to the extent that players resort to third-party tools, I regret to say we may have to reconsider making comments in the future. They're already using those third-party tools. It's not going to be a players resorting to you. They already do.
They have been for a decade now.
They have, because you winked, nodded, don't ask, don't tell it. That's why. That's why. And you don't have any way to detect it. And I think it's interesting, like other stuff they talked about in other places was they didn't in this post, which I thought was a little weird, was like adding cheat software to tell if there was anything interacting with the Final Fantasy client in any way, just reporting it. And they've mentioned this in other places where that's not really an option for the complexity of Final Fantasy. I didn't like their reasoning, but whatever. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. But we'll see. Interestingly, on this topic, by the way, the video of the world first got DMCA'd.
Yeah.
By Square.
I think it's fair.
Why?
You break the terms of service of the base game that you're creating the content of. You don't have any right to use that property in your own videos. It's my opinion.
I have a feeling Chronos probably feels a little different.
I mean, there's like millions of other videos that exist, though, with all that stuff on there that aren't taken down. And the monk in his group, that video is still up. Yeah. It's consistency for me.
Yep.
If you want to say
absolutely
that they cheated or whatever, which I don't agree with, but even if you want to say that, then they all cheated, right? But that's not what's happening here. We took a video down and that was it. That was all that happened. They're still world first. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just weird. Because even if we don't agree, like I don't even have to agree with what they say as long as it's consistent. Like, I understand all stuff is bannable, right? That's what they say. But it doesn't feel like it's that way, if that makes sense. And then just having no way to enforce it makes it feel worse, because now we're supposed to trust player honor. And I'm sorry,
that's a real problem.
As a competitive person in several games, player honor, you can miss me with that. That is like, because if I'm playing you in a card game and we're like, because I'm gonna use a card game example because I know Mike's played, and I'm playing at like nationals or something, I'm watching you like a hawk.
Oh yeah.
Like.
Yeah, Final Fantasy TCG, I'm watching your discards, I'm watching the elements, I'm watching what you played, I'm watching the costs.
And it's no disrespect to the person across the table.
I'm watching your shuffle, I'm watching your cuts, I'm watching everything. Right. Yeah, it may be Adam sitting right here.
Sure.
Adam, you and I have played in tournaments where local tickets to region or to Nats were on the line. I watched you like a fucking hawk when you cut and shuffled my deck. You watched me the same way.
And I hope that everybody...
And we love each other.
Yeah, no, and there's no problem with that because the ownership there, you're looking out for yourself, right? Like, we're there, we have a goal, right? And our goal is to win within the rules, okay? And we need to also make sure the rules are being... And that's the thing, is like, we're there, there's judges to also police it, and Square admittedly has no way to police this. So we're just like shouting the rules into the ether, and the real people that get punished are just the people that stream, to be honest. I mean, that's just how it is. And go ahead.
So they want the players to police it, but they're the ones that are being competitive, looking for any edge. And it's not that Square can't police it themselves. They just refuse to put in the software to do it because it's that would lead to other backlash.
Well, no,
They put themselves
and
in
you know
this
what?
situation.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I said that at the beginning that Square Enix did this themselves, and I'm going to say this too. Yoshi P did this to himself a little bit. Him personally did this. So you, on one side, you've got this wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you whatever, I can't see what you have. You don't ask, don't tell mentality about it. On the other side, you have we're going to start looking at what add-ons people are using and see if that makes sense to put in the game. Well, for raiders, the number one thing that they would probably ask for first is a DPS meter. Give me I mean, there may be some other things too. I'm not saying it's just a DPS meter, but at the top of that list is going to be, hey, we need a DPS meter. Well, they've already said they're not going to do that. Years and years and years ago, and now 4 years, we're not going to do that because you've got Yoshi P's philosophy of, I don't want to build anything in the game that could then be weaponized and against other players. Well, guess what? Your post is being weaponized now against other players for something you were wink, wink, nudging, nudging. I want to put this post away so that we can talk about, just our general thoughts on this in a second here. The last two sections I'm not going to read. But I am going to tell you it's because it's not pertinent to what we're going to be discussing here. The last two are asking you, please don't data mine and leak screenshots because in the last patch, they forgot to encode a few things correctly, and some screenshots of the Ultimate were able to be data mined and leaked.
Yeah.
Subsequently, that led to speculation that somebody was emulating the Final Fantasy XIV servers so that they could play the content or get familiar with pieces of the information of the content faster than other places. That was not true. That did not happen. Square really feels like that would be virtually impossible, and even if you could emulate it, you still wouldn't have access to the newest content until the patch dropped and was available anyway, so even emulation wouldn't give you an edge. So he addressed that in the context of the data mining of the later phases of the Ultimate screenshot being released. Really not pertinent to what we're going to be discussing here, but if you have something you want to say, go for it, Tark.
I was going to say emulation could still give you an edge because you could put yourself in God mode to see further things into the fight sooner than other people could. But yeah, I doubt that people could actually get that really going.
Right. Well, that exactly. Yeah, it could give you an edge, but he was saying no. The screenshots that you saw were not because somebody emulated the server.
This started actually because of a meme, and I think it got to them in the wrong way, and I think it's just a communication because when TPS cleared T, this was 3 years ago. Everybody was like, "Oh, they cleared so fast, they had to have had a private server to practice the mechanics, and that's how they knew about the Enigma code."
Right.
And then that meme kind of got out of hand. I think some people actually started to believe it. So I can't believe Yoshi P even had to address this personally, but he did. So here we are.
All right, Jen, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it. I mean, Tark, it sounds like you are, on that far one side that just says, get rid of all of them. Get rid of all of them. Put a cheating gate up. And if you want to do this, Square, put a cheating gate up, tag anything that's hitting the client, and shut the client down if it happens. And just flush the entire system.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to echo what Newest Girl said in chat. There's no honor when it comes to competitive matches or PvE content of this nature. And again, mine.
It's not competitive.
You have a world first race. Everyone
between
acknowledges a race.
Between a total of 32 to 64 people in the entire world, grouped up into groups of 8 that are all utilizing those same tools already. It's fair.
Again.
Trust me, the world first race among the people that are doing the world first race is an absolutely fair race.
Anyways, from a PS5 perspective, I want some of these tools to come into the game. I understand, and I've relinquished all hope of DPS meters coming into the game, but there are some other cool things that could come in that would be helpful. So hopefully they parse through what they can bring in. I do believe that they should probably put an anti-cheating into the game.
I mean, we see it in tons of games that we play. So it's like they're reluctant to do it, though. They're reluctant to do it. Yeah.
I'd rather they do it than beat around the bush, personally. Like, again, it's just like consistency for me.
Consistency,
But let me ask you a question, though, Tark. So,
Sure.
like, do you think Act is cheating? Yes?
Yes.
Like, just
But
Act. And I'm not talking
I
about
guess
Actbot. I'm talking about just the application of Act.
Okay, so let's not even
Yeah.
let's not even name an application. Do you think a DPS meter that is not in the game but is accurate is cheating? Let's make it real basic.
To be real basic? Yes.
Real basic. I'm not going to
Okay.
give you any of Act's
a
advanced
hypocrite, though.
other functionality.
All right, yeah.
To be a hypocrite, though, I have used that information that other players
All
in
right,
that team.
and that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. So here's the
So
thing.
I-
It's like you knowingly raid with someone who uses it. Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So do you feel like that is hypocritical? I mean, you've already kind of said it.
I did. So the fact that I don't have access to this, and I feel that there should be a line in the sand, doesn't mean I denigrate others that are using it, unless you're cheating.
Let me ask you
Like,
another follow-up question.
Hardcore cheating and hacking.
Yeah, let me ask.
Go ahead.
So since you know that, and you know someone in your group is using it,
Mhm.
do you feel like it took anything away from your clears that you have, like your P4S clear, your ultimate clears? Do you feel like you didn't earn those because
No, I don't
someone
feel
else
like
in your group?
no, I don't feel like it took anything away.
Right. So that's my point, right? Like if we don't feel that way, then why do we care? Like, because I don't feel personally. Here's my take. Okay, I think some of them are over the line. I don't think Act is cheating. That's where I stand. I don't think the UI mods are cheating. I think that's just a different way someone wants to play the game. They're displaying the same information just in a different way. You could argue maybe some subtle stuff is a little bit more information than you would normally have.
Yeah, I mean, there are add-ins that do frames and certain things that, yeah.
So, but when I play, I don't feel like even the people that are using the tools that I would say are over the line, they're not playing my game. Like, I'm playing my game. I'm working toward my clear. And to Mike's point, to an extent, the world first race to me is fair because those 64 players, they all are aware of these things. They're all using these things or choosing not to use them specifically, even though they know that you could be banned because they are aware that other teams that are racing to do this are using them. I agree it's against terms of service. I agree if they show it on stream, they should get banned because that's how this is worded. But like, they're not affecting me, and like, I don't know. That's just how like so I could just ignore it. But I do think to an extent, some of the ignorance around some of this stuff just bothers me because it just feels like they're asking us to be ignorant in a way, almost like you're really hard. Like, you're very black and white, which is fine. I respect that you have a stance. It's just, it's hard. For me, it's hard to be black and white when you know there's people on your team that use it. Like, do you know someone, like, has anybody on your team ever used an Act call out, for example?
I may have heard some
Okay.
partials come through Discord.
And did you feel the urge to report that person?
No.
All right. So, like
I said, again, I guess it's. I'm so weird about this. Like, I wanted to.
Tark didn't know he was going to be on lie detector tonight.
I'm so even, and I just said that I am a little hypocritical about this.
I'm not trying to like be mean or anything. I'm just trying to like make a point. Yeah.
No. I understand your point, and I want it to be a level playing field. That's what I want. But again, I don't denigrate others that use these tools. But if they get caught and they get banned, then it's like, well, that's your fault.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way too.
Let me throw my opinion in there.
Okay.
It's just on the general topic, right? In the past, in my entire Final Fantasy XIV career, I have used 2 different add-ons. I don't currently use any, and I haven't for a long time. So go ahead and report that I don't use them. But I have used 2 in the past. One was G shaders. I used G shaders for mainly because it was installed for Final Fantasy XI because the game looks like actual dog shit if you don't.
I didn't even know that's what
and so I just used some of its functionality for Final Fantasy XIV when I was making video guides to trials and things like that. So we're talking probably 7-ish years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And then I had Act installed for a brief period. I want to say it was for Binding. No, it wasn't Binding Coil. Yeah, it would have been the second or third round of Coil, I think.
Nail.
Yeah. So around that time. Since then, I haven't used either. I still think, I haven't used either.
And that's fine. That's totally
and I don't even have them installed anymore, mainly because I stopped playing Final Fantasy XI. But here's my personal opinion. I uninstalled them because I just didn't care.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was like, I'm running the raids I want to do, the difficult content that I want to do, when I want to do it, with the group of people that I want to be doing it with. And you know what? If our DPS isn't there, I really don't care which one of the 6 of us it was, because it just wasn't there. I'll see you next week after we've all gained another couple pieces of gear, and the DPS will probably be there. That's always just been my thing. So it's not because I didn't want to use it or was shunning it. Nobody in our group used it because we were a different group. We weren't a world first, got to know who's pulling, who isn't pulling, who's pulling enough, who needs to pull more. We just didn't have a need for that, so none of us cared, and we wanted to play it the way we wanted to play it, which was more casual, without the ability to be like, Tark, you're really fucking lame tonight. Get your shit together before we come back next week. That's not what we had done that in WoW, and we didn't want to do that anymore. And so that fell by the wayside. That's personally why I don't use them, not because I have anything against them. Now, if you want to use them, I'm not like Tark. I don't care. I don't care. If you want to use a DPS, I care if I'm facing you in PvP and you got a teleportation hack. Of course,
different.
that's different.
Yeah.
That's cheating. We threw that stuff out earlier. It's a totally different discussion. You want to use a DPS meter? I don't care. I don't care. And you know what? I'm not even going to report you if I see it on stream, because I just don't care.
Right, yeah.
You know what? The only time I'm going to report you is if you feel the need to A, link it in chat, but then also B, follow up by calling me out and saying douchey things.
Then you're just an asshole. That has nothing to do with the DPS meter
right.
in my mind.
Then you're an asshole, and I'm going to bait you into swearing and report you for that anyway.
Get him with the double strike, yeah.
I'm going to get you with the double, baby. I'm going to get you with the double.
Or bait them into taking a screenshot of their UI and their stuff, so then you can report them.
I just don't care.
Yeah, and I think
it's a game.
Yeah.
I play it to have fun. The people I play it with, we have fun. Do we clear more difficult content? Yeah, we clear the Savages. We clear the Ultimates. Now, granted, when it gets to like the Ultimates, we clear the Unreals. When it gets to the Ultimates, are we a couple weeks behind real time? Yeah. You know why? Because we just don't care.
Yeah.
It's a game.
So like what you're saying is I think we preached on here for a while. It's all about finding in this game, man. Just find the people that you like playing with that have same goals as you, and I guarantee you it's gonna be fun. Doesn't matter to me personally who's using what tools or whatever. Like I get to play with my friends. We get to do content that we like, and it's fun. And I think to me, like, I mean, I'm a bit competitive with it. Sure, I like to push myself. That's just how I am as a person. Like I play fighting games competitively. I've played card games competitively. I just like to be competitive, even if that's looking at a number on a screen go up. That's just it. Like I kind of want to read a tweet from like a person who's like in the raid community, because I thought it was like it hit a really good thing about. I feel like people don't understand about like the raid community.
Yeah, give him credit though.
So his name is Zeph. He's like a big streamer. I think he actually killed Dragon's Soul War with Mr. Happy. So he said there's a certain type of person that's obsessed with pushing personal limits and becoming as good as they can be. You may not understand it. This may not be you, but it is me. Try to understand that there are motivations to play games beyond just getting content done. And that is why people do this stuff. It's not like and Mike's point is accurate, right? Mike's like, I'm gonna play with my friends. Our skill levels don't matter. When we clear doesn't matter. We're gonna do the content we like, and we're gonna eventually get there. And that's great.
And you know what? We always do. And you know what? We always do before the next patch. So it's not even like we're all that behind on anything. The last Ultimate was the only one that I haven't done prior to the next Now, I know that's a big time, but I haven't had time to prog last Ultimate prior to this one. But it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. What I do hate is it being weaponized now. Yeah, I'm totally on board where if Square wants to put up a cheat shield, and shut it all down,
I'm fine. With I'm fine with it.
I would be fine if they said, hey, you know what? We're okay with add-ons that are created, but they must use this API, and they decide what they want in the API. I'm fine with that, too. Yeah. Like, however they want it. But the problem is there is no good way out here for Square at this point, Tark. There is no good way out. If you can't equitably enforce it, which they can't, and it relies on people reporting it, which right now is being weaponized, then you can't enforce it in a meaningful way or detect it, then your only real option is to shut it down, which is going to piss people off, but it's really the only play you have right now.
That's it. That's the only play they have. And I feel that they do need to shut it down because this is just getting out of hand. And again, it's only affecting a small percentage of the player base, but when you have to do multiple posts to get your point across, Yoshi, you gotta. You've been talking about this since 2013, 2014. It's time to put the hammer down and put your actions where your words are.
The problem I see, Kronos, is if you don't, you run into where World of Warcraft is right now.
Mm-hmm.
A few years down the road, you run into where World of Warcraft is. I want to show you a couple of things before I show you where World of Warcraft is right now. We've actually seen some prog raiders banned right on their stream as they were doing it. They got thrown into jail. We've got Bagel Goose. We've got Hiroro. Some screenshots. The videos don't exist anymore. They took the clips down, but
they were pretty awesome.
there's the old jail. If you've never seen it in Final Fantasy XIV, there's the jail that they'll suck your character to, and it's pretty apparent right on screen why.
Take you right from your duty. They will rip you out of your duty to put you in jail.
Yep. I mean, it's kind of apparent what's going on in that screenshot that might not... That don't look right. That don't look like the UI. that doesn't look like it. So, yeah, it's absolutely happening. And if you fast forward, you get where WoW is right now. And this is from Ian Hezekostas, World of Warcraft director, right? In an interview with Asmongold, say what you will about Asmongold, he's not the point here. He asked Ian, having weak auras or having deadly boss mods is pretty much required at this point, and it creates this artificial gap between casual players and hardcore players. It's kind of a two-part question. Number one, does the team design these heroic and mythic raid encounters for add-ons, the same with Mythic Plus? And the second part, are we going to see more of these features incorporated into the game? And Ian had a very, very, very long reply, which I'm not going to read the entire reply here. But I will tell you that it boiled down to the following. Yes, we have to design with those in mind now because they've gotten so prevalent. They've gotten so advanced in what they can do, what they can show, what they can communicate to the player, that if they didn't take deadly boss mods, big wigs, DPS meters, and recount and things like that into account when designing the harder, more challenging content, then it wouldn't be harder or challenging because the audience would just tear through it. So the add-ons actually have an impact on design. Then to follow up, are you going to put some of these things in the UI? And he did talk about, yes, there are some things like a lot of things that weak auras can do. They are changing their game in the UI in Dragonflight, which we talked about on Gaming Gumbo last week, to do some of those things. So they're kind of in the same boat as Square, where they're looking at some of these add-ons and saying, you know, what makes sense to be in the game? But I thought the more interesting part was the follow-up here. The follow-up. Have you ever thought about actually disabling the combat add-ons? Have there been conversations about that? Or is that just kind of an idea? And Ian said, I mean, it's an idea that we've had conversations about. The challenge is like the fundamental pieces, can add-ons tell what buffs and debuffs you have on you and your members of your group have on them? If we say no, okay, cool. We just broke every raid frame add-on. Everything you use to even see baseline tracking uptime of your slice and dice or whatever. You want an add-on that makes that easier to see? We just broke all of them. That would be pretty ruinous for a good chunk of our player base to do suddenly. So I think we want to figure out a better path forward, but it's not clear. They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. The add-ons have become so prevalent, they now have to frickin' design around them, Chronos. Their actual design has to go around them, and they don't know what to do about them because they don't want to break all. They don't want to just shut them all off and say you can't use them.
Yep.
But if we want to say, hey, this one's going a little too far, let's stop that in the API, because they all touch the, all the Lua touches that API, they break all of them. Honestly, I feel like the only way out is the way out that neither one of these companies wants or I think will take, and that is to just shut them all down. They don't want to do that. But that's honestly the only clear-cut answer. Everything else is going to result in some nebulous shade of gray where we have a very similar discussion to what we're having right now a year down the road. Unless I'm missing something, unless you have a better idea.
No, I think you brought up a point as to why Square tackles the problem the way they do also, which I don't agree with, but I can see it, right? So the reason they do this nebulous way and they're like, no, all is bad, is because then if they just tell what they perceive as everyone that all is bad, then most people are just going to probably adhere to that. And so they don't really have to balance around it because their stance is all is bad. WoW's, I think, because they became so attached to all of it, now it's hard to detach, right? Because you got these hooks in. Whereas Final Fantasy, the hooks really aren't there because... Yet. That's fair. Yet. The hooks, but they're not there because every time Final Fantasy patches, these things all break. Because they're not patching with these tools in mind, right? So now then the ownership becomes the people that make the tools have to then write their patch to correspond with Final Fantasy's patch, and if Final Fantasy patches a week later, they're broken again, and it's this loop. And it's because Final Fantasy doesn't openly support it, which I think is why they take their stance, because as long as they don't openly support it, they can break all these things, and people just have to kind of go about their lives when the stuff's down. They don't have to make some announcement hey guys, your add-ons aren't going to work when we patch the game. They don't have to say that. Whereas WoW is we have to make sure when we release our patch, all the add-ons work, So I agree though, they don't.
Well, they don't really, but they are easily fixed in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
You would load up back in the day, and your add-ons would be out of date because of new patch. So and then a couple of days later, but I see your point. Not more that Blizzard had to program around these, but they did have to program around a support of add-ons.
Yeah.
So not necessarily that they were making sure the add-ons functioned. They weren't. Sure. That was the add-on creators. But they did have to acknowledge more of a, hey, what's this going to do to some of the more popular add-ons when we launch this patch? They did have to be a little more cognizant, where SE has no acknowledgement of them. You're right.
Yeah, just for more clarity, I think this is true, but I'm asking because I don't really play much WoW. They have an API that's open, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's also a big difference too.
Well, that was why I said one of my other suggestions is if you want to only allow particular add-ons for very particular things, either cosmetic UI stuff or vision or hearing impaired or other accessibility issues, then make an API.
Oh, I would love that.
And you as Square Enix get to determine what that API grants what information that API grants access to. Yeah. Then you do have a really nice way of just saying any add-on that touches anything outside of the API, we will ban you for.
And that I would love that because that's a clear stance. To me, that's a clear stance.
And again, that's them policing it and putting their stamp of approval on certain things and not certain things. But they don't want to do that.
Yeah, they put themselves in this position. It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. At the end of the day, where do I sit on it? I'm not this is going to sound fence city, but it's more just fucking apathy. I don't care. I just don't. You know, if you're not cheating, I don't care. Because you have a ticking timer in your unit frame up by Kronos' name and I don't care. You know, whatever. To me, play the game the way you want to. So I'm on the side of I wouldn't care if Square Enix banned them. I wouldn't care if they fully embrace them. It really doesn't matter to me. I don't like it being weaponized. That's where I sit. I really don't like it being weaponized. I 100%
agree with what you just said. Yeah, I think I'm with you.
No.
I really don't care. I play the way the game I play it the way I already play it. The way I see other people playing it doesn't really affect me. So it's like I'm not a world first raider. Like I might be like above average or whatever, but like I'm not competing with these guys. I can't play for 16 hours straight and take a week off from work. It's not gonna happen. You want to talk about like things that you have to do that aren't fair that to compete? That's up there.
I will say this: if they really want it fixed, they could do it, Tark.
Yeah,
if they really want it fixed, they could absolutely do it. They could just shut it all down with a cheat guard. And I know that they have expressed technical concerns with implementing that type of thing, and maybe it's not as easy as it is in some other games. I totally get that as a software engineer, but I don't think it couldn't be done. It just might be a little harder to implement for particular architecture reasons and things like that. If they wanted to, they could.
And yeah, for the health of the game, maybe they should. I absolutely believe that they could and they should.
Can't claim to be above average if you need DPS meters and such to play. If the DPS meters really have I don't know. I don't think they have any bearing on skill, but whatever.
I think more information leads to better play, but that's my opinion.
We're gonna ask a very specific question on that when we get to the end here. In some other Square Enix news, not a lot. Final Fantasy XI did have their anniversary stream, and it was it was great. Like, it was nice with all the reminiscing and the interviews, and we got new music on the title screen, a new We Are Vana'diel track, which is pretty freaking boss if you haven't listened to it. We've got a bunch of content coming. I mean, it's just like increased master levels, which we knew were coming. 40 to 50. We're getting some ambuscade stuff. We're getting the Abyssia campaign. But we're getting a bunch of cool stuff. Cornelia Trust is coming back. So, but nothing. No big announcement. The 10th came.
They keep teasing is not been revealed.
The 10th came and went. So really, the last date of any significance for the 20th anniversary is May 16th. But I really don't think. And producer Akihiko Matsui does have an announcement to make on that day. But I kind of think it's going to be his retirement. We'll see. Final Fantasy XVI trailer is incoming soon. Yoshi P says it's done. The new trailer, and it's going to appear soon. Still that rumor out there that we've talked about on this show many times, gentlemen, of Sony potentially purchasing Square Enix at some point. We'll see if it actually happens. And we're going to leave on this. Oh, God. What is this? What is this?
Just so you know, this is not Square official. It's
1/4 scale statue of Tifa doing the Jacko pose. Credit to D Pity on Twitter for the images. If you want this figure, you can buy it. And it does come with exchangeable battlesuit nude body pieces if
Oh,
for
Lord.
some reason you want that. Anywhere from 650 to almost 800 USD.
Worth every penny.
I feel like there's gotta be cheaper ways to get off. There's gotta be cheaper ways to get off.
Love Tifa. She's my favorite character from 7, but I don't think I want this on my shelf.
I got a lot of toys on the shelves behind me. I don't know. I don't think this would be one. I don't think. And by the way, I am showing you the most flattering angle.
That is the most flattering. Yeah.
There are other angles if you are so
I
inclined.
mean, you really got to know what you're buying. Okay. Yeah. Come on.
They do not show you the nude pieces though on the site. I checked, so you didn't have to.
God's work.
So yeah, doing God's work for all of you watching Ready Check Radio, and so you might not know what you're getting into there. But yeah. Let's head over and do Love It or Leave It. Love It or Leave It is the way we end every episode of the Relic Grind here. It's where I give you something Square Enix related. Could be a feature in a game, a press release, controversy, anything that I think we should talk about. And you tell me, love it, want more of it, or leave it, get rid of it entirely. And I'm just going to put it right on the line, gentlemen, here. A DPS meter in Final Fantasy XIV. Love it or leave it. Tark, we'll start with you. Again, no qualifiers on this. In the game, works on every platform, works for everybody. So there you go, a DPS meter across the board. You're fine with your PS5. Love it or leave it. Do you want one?
Just a straight DPS meter.
Yep, that's it. Nothing fancy. Just shows the damage done and the damage per second and a percentage of your party's damage in a given encounter.
The fact that I feel that a DPS meter is just not enough information, I'll say leave it.
Okay, hold on. What did you need? Is it? I told you it does total damage per second, percentage of party in your encounter. What more would you want from just a DPS meter?
Well, I don't need the rest of the party. If I were to have something, I'd want it just for myself. And I would like some more information. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is, but
yeah, I want more info, but I don't know what.
DPS meter in itself is just, unless you're tracking everything yourself and you're going through your own minutia of your global cooldowns and off global cooldowns, and I don't feel it's enough information. So if it's just a DPS meter, I'm gonna say leave it.
All right, Kronos.
If you're putting that tag on it, I'm gonna say leave it as well.
What tag?
That it's for every party member. Everybody can see it.
Yeah, well, I think. Okay, so here's the thing for me. And thinking through this question a little bit, I'm like, what good is a DPS meter if you don't have some type of comparison, whether that's to your party or to other sages or to other black mages to know I'm not doing things quite right. So where am I screwing this up?
If you get that deep, and I know maybe this goes into more of the gray area crap, but if you get that deep and they're able to display a personal number and you care enough past the person, once you've gotten to the personal number and you're like, okay, I feel like I'm doing good, let me compare myself to other black mages or whatever. I mean, there's still a log that you can, that maybe they maybe the game might support it, but they probably won't. And then you upload that to a third party site and you decipher that and you go deeper. But I do think, like, right now, with what we have to personally track yourself, like Stone Sky Sea is bad. It's just bad. It's just bad. Like, it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do. And honestly, I don't even know if any people really use it outside of just like, let me go see if I can kill this traded dummy one time. The best information you get actually typically is from like Discords and stuff, and talking to other players that play your job. And then like learning from them, and a lot of times I learn new stuff about just other jobs every day, just like little small stuff that I find interesting. So I don't think just blanket putting in a party thing either, because like Tark makes a good point too. It's a little bit misleading sometimes because jobs do different stuff, right? If you just put something in there, it's gonna be hard to measure unless you know what you're looking at. And I think a lot of people have that problem with FF logs too. Like they just look at the log and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's obviously what it is." But you have to kind of dig into it to really understand how it works and where the numbers come from and stuff. Because, like, you're a machinist, you're just gonna be fourth there, and you're gonna be like, "Well, how do I beat the black mage?" And someone's just gonna be like, "Yeah, you don't." Like,
Yeah.
so it's give and take. So if it's like all or nothing, I'm gonna say no. But I am a supporter of a personal DPS meter just for improvement's sake.
I'm going to say leave it. I just don't care enough. My DPS is fine. I'm doing fine. My group is killing stuff at the pace we need to kill stuff to be done between every patch and have our X months of, grinding out whatever fun shit we want to grind. So we're fine. We're not falling behind. So I really don't care whether it's 300 or 50,000. It really doesn't matter to me. I'm going to leave it, and I do like the philosophy of it, not being in the game to be weaponized, because apparently we'll weaponize it out of game anyway.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us today. Remember, we have got Gaming Gumbo on Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about the week in gaming. We'll be here live then. And we'll be back next Thursday. But remember, Tark and Kronos will have next Thursday off because we will be doing our third and final round of Final Fantasy Jeopardy. We had to line change a little bit. We'll have Rook, we'll have Ginger Prime, and we will have Andrew Fusion X Copeland participating in Final Fantasy Jeopardy. No Dave. They will be competing for the third. Yeah, he was using a third-party Jeopardy add-on.
If one of them drops out, Dave will show up. Just saying. Wink, wink.
They will be competing for the third and final spot in our Tournament of Champions. So expect to see Rook. She will be taking on Ginger Prime, who lost last time but is going to get second shot, and Fusion. So we will have a lot of fun doing that. Until next time, Kronos, where can everybody find you?
Same as always, Twitter. It's where I go to yell into the void. I'm slowly becoming old man yells at clouds. So
that's you.
Yeah.
Tark.
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all at Tarkov Gaming, and sometimes I yell back from the void back at Kronos. So definitely check all that out.
I'm Mike Byrne. Mike Byrne, you can follow me. Whoops. Right there at Magic Man 1, but more importantly, follow at RC Radio so we can tweet at you every time we go live with a podcast or one of our volunteer streamers who I love very much. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers. Later.